Yeah. Kia ora, tuia ki runga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki roto, tuia ki waho. Tuia tātou te tangata, ki te kaupapa o te hui nei, ki te kaupapa o te rangi nei, mauri ora kia tātou katoa.
Kia ora. Thank you very much. So we've got a full house of people here, just a couple of housekeeping matters. Most of you know where the toilets are now. Fire exits are all marked if we need to exit out of there. And just a reminder that it is being recorded, as you heard at the start. So we don't have any apologies. We've got a full attendance, so we don't need to deal with that. Nobody's requested public forum opportunities, so we can move from that.
Excuse me, Derek. Richard Kirby is an apology.
Okay. I thought he was on his way, so
unless you've heard otherwise, yeah.
Maybe it's like the same with Andrew, so maybe we'll give them temporary apologies. They're both apparently expected to be here. So, any declarations of interest that relate to the items on the agenda for this time? If not, okay, we'll move on. Just want to welcome some other people. Deborah Callahan is now working at Nelson City. She'll be taking Jane's place for a while, so she'll be here as. And Pip, did you want? You're just sitting in? Okay, cool. Jake is too, so your committee will remember Jake from last meeting. No late items. So we need to move to the confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting, which was back in November, the 5th of November. Anybody have any issues in terms of what was in those minutes? Everybody happy with that? Yep. Actually, you weren't here, Tim, so you can't move. So, where?
Oh, that's today.
That's today. Yeah, no, you're right. So,
happy moves.
Brent's move and Joe's second. Thank you very much. There's no further discussion. I'll put that. They're true and correct record. All in favour, please say aye. All right. Carried. Thank you. So we'll move to the main item of business for this month, which is the activity report. Do you have with you? So Jane and Rob are the two that are going to speak to this. I think starting with Jane, she seems to have got the short straw.
Thank you. Just as a very high level overview, I'll do, and then I'm happy to take questions because there's nothing in particular that jumps out that's something different than what we've written in the report, and I know you will have all read it, so I'll just be really brief as I pick out a few items that I want to mention. In terms of all of the capital projects, they're generally just ticking along. In our operational areas, we've got a new open spaces contract in the Nelson City Council side, but it's not expected to have any impact on the operations at Saxton Field. And the new management contract at the venues is going well. In terms of fees and charges for 2025-26, again on the Nelson City Council side, because we've picked up a few areas that didn't have fees, we will be implementing some new fees, and that needs our council to make a decision on that. And so there'll be 2 new fees coming in, a higher fee for the netball pavilion kitchen and a casual fee so that people can turn up and play basketball when there's an available court of $5 per person. That will have to go through our 6th of March Nelson City Council meeting. And I don't think there's any fee changes proposed on the Tasman side at this stage, unless you want to say anything, Rob? No? Lovely. And then the other largish item that we've been working on is the traffic safety assessment that came out of a couple of meetings back. There were a whole raft of recommendations that came out of that. The final report was only received not so long ago, and we've just been working our way through those recommendations and getting quotes from various contractors about what we're to do next. We've got a limited budget that we can put towards it, and we'll be having to prioritise what we can do out of that budget, and what we can do now to do later. And then the only other thing is that there will be a couple of items that will come to your next committee meeting, likely around a memorandum of understanding at the stadium for the users there about how we'll approach the relationship with the regular users there going forward, and some signage at the indoor cricket target shooting building. Cricket wants to bring some extra information there about naming a building. And that's really all that I want to highlight, but I'm happy to take questions because there's a lot in there that I've skimmed past, so you might have questions on those.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you very much. So I propose to work through page by page, so you get a chance to ask any questions or anything. So beginning on page 4, anything in terms of those updates from the last meeting? I think the first one there's ongoing discussions happening with cricket, and there will be more stuff presented at the next meeting, but anyone's got anything at this stage? Brent and then Campbell.
Yeah, thanks. So it is on the cricket bit. So we've had a copy of the email from Mayor Smith, and Councillor Rice and I briefly caught up with Mayor King, but my understanding is LTP budget is LTP budget. So really interested in staff's recommendations of how, if there is an appetite for media towers, what's going to get bumped and what's going to get moved to that. So at this stage, we haven't perceived from our end there being any additional funding in LTP. And by April, it's almost too late. Because you're running close to our AP budget protections and bits and pieces. So interested in that. And while we're talking budget, I'm also interested, I know we'll get there when we get there. So let's just start with that. So if there is a desire and move for media towers, I'm just interested in how we fund those within the existing budget.
Anyone want to comment at this point? Andrew?
Thanks, and apologies for my lateness today. It's very difficult finding a car park close to this venue. It certainly is a busy place today. Look, I think we have to work through the design process, which is underway this financial year, and then we'll have a better understanding of what the cost of that work will be. And then the councils are going to have to make a decision, potentially out of that cyclical process, whether they want to proceed or not. So I think there's a little bit of work to do yet in terms of arriving at a figure of what that work would be worth.
Campbell? Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Derek, and for you. Hello, Andrew. In terms of that investigational work into the media towers, is that being council driven or driven from cricket itself? And how's that kind of looking to proceed? I mean, there could be a completely different want from cricket where council may see it as a need of just getting some towers up and running. But how's that kind of working? That work?
Thanks, through the chair. It's a really good question, and the team can talk perhaps more about the specific approach that they're taking at the moment. But it is really important that New Zealand Cricket, CD Cricket, are involved in that, and also their media partners are involved in that process too, because that's where the need really is. So we will have to get that right. There are some examples around the country, I think, where there has been some work done on this already, but I think there will be quite a bit of bespoke thinking with it too, just with the changing technology over time.
So just from my own information, I mean, TDC are often slightly ahead of Nelson City in terms of annual plans and LTP. So did I take it from your comment, Brenda, that yours will need to know before the next meeting of this committee?
Sorry, so we won't, because it won't be till the following AP anyway. But if the $26.50 or $26,500 is already in next year's AP for the investigation work, there's not an issue. So just in terms of line by line in our AP, so yes, we've already started our annual plan workshops.
Yeah.
Through the chair, just to clarify, it's actually in the current financial year's work program. So that's why I say the team's onto it. Yeah.
Okay. Anything further on that item? Anything else on page 4? Campbell?
Thank you, and I just want to bring it up again. It's 4.4 with the basketball hoops at the stadium. And noting there that Nelson Basketball Association has not yet been approached around financial contribution. Now, if I'm correct in thinking we're starting this work relatively soon in terms of investigational work, when do we plan to start having discussions with those, well, not just the basketball, but other potential stakeholders around their financial contribution towards it?
Through the chair, so this is something we're literally working on right now. So we're currently putting together letters to all the codes and also some of the clubs to work out what contribution is going to be required from each, which is quite a tricky piece of work. I've just read through 98 pages of the Wellington Regional Sports Codes funding review that was done to try and help us come up with a system. We don't want to reinvent the wheel since they've already spent so much time and money on doing that report. We want to go through it and work out what we can institute within NCC and hopefully regionally to try and untangle the mess. So we're currently putting those letters together and we'll be in touch with them really soon.
Sure, and I guess, I mean, my big concern around it, and just for you, Chair Derek, is the fact that at the moment we've got a budget line there which doesn't seem to have any funding apart from venue hire coming from the codes. And I just think we're getting into a very tricky situation where we have a misbalance from what some codes pay for what they would call an asset to basketball. And I wouldn't want us to get too far down the court, should I say, and all of a sudden we're stuck in the position where we're funding it, because I think it's a huge cost that we can't really face, walk to the ratepayer today and say this is a good investment. So I guess that's just my concern with that budget line at the second.
Yeah.
Through the chair, the only thing I would add to that is that the direct renewal cost of the hoops is quite a lot less than the upgrade that we're doing, and the upgrade is not only a benefit to basketball, so it's not always a straight line with these sorts of renewals, and so this is a benefit to the venue as well. So we just need to factor that in as well. Yep.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just want to probably add on to Paul is because my understanding the driving point was from venue, not necessarily from the basketball code for the upgrade because it was damaged to floor. And again, my understanding from the history was basketball initially paid for these hoops as part of their contribution to Saxton Stadium. And maybe we can have a little more discussion when you talk about the old code, the key codes, the history of that document that was there. But so it definitely paid to have a nice open conversation early, because unless you've had those conversations, it's going to probably come as a surprise that they may be looking at some funding.
Yeah, I mean, you are correct. It's, I guess the hoops that are there, the movable ones, are reaching the end of their life in the foreseeable future. So there's that aspect, but there is a driver from the venue as well.
Okay, all happy on that. So anything else on page 5? I guess just in terms of the inclusive playground, will that be back to I think the May meeting, late May? Was that a likely time frame for after that consultation phase?
Through the chair, yes, that's the sort of time frame we're looking at. So the consultation process has just begun.
Yep.
And we've just reached out to the lady that made a submission to the long-term plan last year.
Yep. Good. Okay, thanks, Rob. I'd just be interested when the figures are available, what energy saving would be made in the stadium too, just from moving to LED. I'm always interested in that sort of stuff. So I look forward to hearing what the saving is. 4.7, anything on that last item on that page 5? If not, we can go to page 6. More the Saxton Field Oval issues, which I guess will come back to us as well. Probably the next meeting. Anything on the rest of that page? General development, skate park, culvert, any of those items? Brent?
Oh, thanks, Mr. Chair. So actually, I think it's further down in the report, and that's the AP move. So related to the Saxton Oval drainage, there's where is it? At 4.21, there's a proposal to bring it forward into 25-26. If I'm reading rightly, and there's an offset of deferring $150,000 worth of work into the following year, but there's still $138,000 shortfall in bringing that forward, and then we're only deferring the 150K by a year. So I guess that's the early question around where's this annual plan and these budgets heading in. If you go back up, whether it's the entrance way that's not going to get done, I'm not sure, but be really good to have a really good insight in terms of that. What we've got in our LTPs is what it is, and we're moving within the Saxton maintenance and capital budgets to it.
So moving stuff around.
Yeah, because it's not that clear there. So it's great that we can defer 150,000 to 1 year, but I'm not sure where the balance comes from.
Yeah, through the chair, I think the team's taken that point. That is really important. It's very consistent with the discussion that we had at the last meeting around we're not rolling a dough at the moment, and we really need to be very careful that we're offsetting costs with other savings. So the team will take that on board.
Thanks, Andrew. Jo?
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just wanted to get some clarification. I mean, it certainly could be me reading things a bit strangely, but I just want some clarification around, and it links into the budgets that Brent was talking about. I'm just trying to find my note. And the walkways. So in 4. Oh, where's it gone?
Yeah, I'm 4.21.
Yes, so in 4.10, the general development budget, it's talking about that, and that we had 106 carried forward from 23-24. And we're looking at using that in the investigation of Saxton Oval. But then further down on 4.19, it's talking about we can't do walkways because there's no budget in 24-25 for this work. So I'm just trying to work out, we've got a carryover for walkways. We're looking at using it for something else. But when it comes to doing walkways, we have no budget. And there was another thing about walkways, and deferring the walkways line on 25-26 of 150K. So I'm just trying to work out what's going to remain in what budget, how that's going to happen, and if we've got carryover for walkways, why aren't we using it for walkways when we're saying we don't have money for walkways?
Thank you. There's a bit in there to answer. We do, yes, no, that's fine. Through the chair, we do have a walkways budget, and Rob, I see you've got the spreadsheet there. I think every alternate year of 150,000 for walkways. So we do have budget for walkways going forward. We've also got a development plan that identified there are a range of areas at Saxton Field that could benefit from enhanced walkways through Saxton Field, and we know that we need to chip away at those areas when we can. The budget that was carried forward that's referred to in that 4.10 was a saving from the work completed in 23-24 for those pathway projects. There was one that went along the front of Hockey, one that went behind the gravel path behind the back of the Hockey area, and one that was near Avery Field. And so the balance of that was just, rather than, it wasn't at that time allocated to a particular walkway, so it was put into that general development budget. And we now know that there's a few other areas that we need to carry on developing as we can for other walkway projects. I'm not sure that that totally answers all of your question, but it might give you confidence that there is a plan and there is budget in future years to carry on developing that network through Saxton.
So is it fair to think that any shuffling or juggling kind of will be back to the committee at the next meeting, kind of proposed for the subsequent year? in particular? Just
yes. And just to clarify, the one in 4.21, that's kind of separate. That's just a budget that we had in next year that we're proposing to defer to allow the other budget to come forward for the drainage stuff. So that's kind of separate to the carryover. That's just a budget that was in the LTP that we're trying to push out for a year.
Through the chair, I think there's also a political question here for the councils, separate potentially from the Saxton committee, around what are the relative priorities of the different work programs that they have underway specifically for Saxton, but wider as well. So, you know, we know that we're looking at some quite significant costs and opportunities with international cricket for Saxton, and I think the council really need to be having a think about just where that sits in amongst the other priorities. There's really good opportunities there, but there are big costs as well. So, you know, while staff can come back with potential offsets within the Saxton budget, there's actually a wider question there, I think, around ratepayer priorities that may make that a little bit more challenging than just coming back to the next meeting of the Saxton committee, if that makes sense.
Something for a joint meeting, doesn't it? All right, no further questions on that. Anything else on page 6? Campbell, yep.
Around not sure who to ask the question to, I'm sorry, but for you around skate parking 4.12 and the development of the communication and engagement plan, and some meetings underway with stakeholders. Obviously we're in a nice position there where the skating community are bringing up a majority of that funding. In terms of that communication and engagement with the neighbours, is that being driven by council or driven by the skate community? And just as a offset of that, what sort of have we got a good relationship set in stone with the skate park community that if they can't reach that funding goal of, I can't recall what it was, but I think 80% of it, that it might not necessarily happen to the schedule that they have given council's current budget lines? It's probably about 3 questions there, I'm sorry.
For you, yes, so the first question around engagement, it's a capital project sitting with council, so it is actually, that aspect is being led by our council communications team together with Skate Nelson Bays, and that's, the letters have gone out to residents, so there's been some feedback come back, pros and cons, and there's a meeting, I think it's the 11th of March with residents on that. And the second question around the funding, there's not a formal agreement at the moment, but there's a good understanding with Skate Nelson Bays and the Lions that if that funding isn't, you know, and there will be a funding agreement developed, but at the moment there's a good understanding with them that that's contingent on that happening.
Thank you, Paul. Anything else on page 6? All good on the rest of those items? Page 7. Probably already covered the walkways and maybe some of the annual plan items in there. Anything under 5? Operational activities? Brent?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. So it's just a comment on, there's no anticipated change of level of service or budget as a result of a new contract. Don't you usually change contracts for either a change in budget or lift in the level of service? I'm just confused about the open spaces contract narrative that we don't expect any levels of service to change and we don't expect any budget to change. Why would we change? I don't know what I'm looking at.
Yeah, we can't obviously say too much in a public space. However, we anticipate that we'll be getting much better value for money out of this contract and that the level of service will be excellent.
Thank you, through the chair. So that's exactly what I expect to read. I would have expected to read there, that based on a tender process, we expect to see a rise in level of service. So thank you.
Can I just have a little question with the extent of that contract for open spaces? So that's all the grassed areas would be covered by that in the complex? And other surfaces?
Grassed and gardens as well. So
Okay.
there are, trees and
Yeah.
esplanade walkways and such.
Yep.
Anything else I'm missing from open spaces in that contract in Saxton? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all covered. Yeah.
That we covered as well. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you. Any, yeah.
Yeah, just to clarify, this isn't a change at all, but the open spaces contract, the NCC open spaces contract covers the Nelson side, not the TDC side. Yeah.
So just for clarity through the chair, but it's irrelevant, isn't it? Because we 50-50 on everything. So we co-fund across all the activities on Saxton Field.
Anything else on page 7?
Derek, I think it's worth acknowledging there the work of on 5.4, and it's more a comment than a question around the work of the new contractor of the stadium. I was out there the other day and I got to meet the manager. Got shown a tour of the building that I've seen many times, but the work that they're actually doing behind the scenes there with first of all the codes, but actually getting a good reputation out there is going in a very, very good way. And I think it's a credit to the guys that are actually working down there. It could have, obviously there was a few road bumps, I guess, along the way, but where they've got to now in the first year, it's looking very good. So I think that needs to be well recognised of the work they are doing out there.
Okay, thank you, Emma. Page 8, fees and charges were touched on before. Anybody have any follow-up questions on that? No? I'm good on that. Anything on the maintenance? Or the traffic safety assessment? This was a major piece that Jane indicated, work that's been happening over the few months now. Joe.
Thank you through your chair. I've got 3 things here. I'm just trying to catch up with myself. I just want to make a comment that was passed on to me by another councillor. They were really pleased to see the quick action when an issue was raised and it meant removal of bollards. They was very impressed that it was actually done very quickly. So I'd like to pass on that appreciation. I'm just noticing the couple of comments about the painting. It'd be great to see that done if we can find the budget. It's been an issue there for a very long time. I was still playing hockey when I was noticing that issue, so that's quite some time ago. If I could please ask, when we're looking at the raised platforms and things, especially as we're heading out towards the velodrome, can we just, I'm sure you will, bear in mind about the positioning of those and how they will affect access to the inclusive playground. You know, we don't want to stick a raised crossing in the wrong place and it means that someone's got to wheel somebody up those slopes. So I'm sure you will, but just a reminder. And was there anything about, I mean, there's been an increased use of that being used as a through road when we've taken down some of that access way. How are the roads holding up to that when we're seeing more traffic across? Because I vaguely recall a point where some of that roading is designed for slow traffic and not a massive amount of traffic. How are those roads holding up with that increased use?
Is that in your patch, Rob? Shared patch.
I think we've got some average daily traffic count data, which regrettably I don't have in front of me at the moment, Joe. It's all right. But yeah, the road condition is, as you would expect, it's holding up well. I don't think we're seeing massive amounts of traffic. I think the school kids are probably using it a bit more, you know, from the Gowring College, where they use that car park by Avery, and then probably proceed through to Stoke through Kerry Marshall Drive or the other access road.
Questions as well? Yeah. All right, cool. Anybody else? Anything on this traffic safety assessment? Everybody happy with what's been covered? Thank you. Anything else on the rest of page 10? Activity management plan or lighting issues? Any questions on any of that? All good. Okay. Page 11, Avery Field, softball, baseball. I guess the question with softball, baseball, has there been any recent progress? And discussions, ongoing discussions on.
Through the chair, yeah, there are ongoing discussions with softball and baseball. I think there is an intention to get them together to see, explore ways in which they might improve their relationship with one another.
Yep.
And we'll update the committee with any progress on that.
And Sport Tasman are happy to assist with that.
Yes.
From what I read. Yep. Okay. Tim and then Brent.
Thanks. Just quick inquiry. If you have to, what's happened of late? Has those two sports grown in number, or is it just trying to, without going into detail, you have differences of bookings, etc. But has some of this been triggered by an increase in numbers of people playing either or sport, or is it just something else?
I'm not entirely aware of any massive recent growth in either code. I think it's just a matter of baseball being able to use the softball diamonds.
Okay. Yeah, in the past we've been in a pretty good space, but I'm always conscious of with rugby league, softball, baseball, they go for their growths and declines and growths and declines, but if it's something outside of that, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Brent?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. It's in regards to 5.25. So I guess I hope the conversation will be with the codes and looking at probably how you could review that and have that in place. Like, it was an important document in the early stages of Saxton Stadium. So it was primarily built for local use, code use for those three codes. And it sort of outlined when each other could bump one another for a week-long national tournament, or protected the number of major events there that they got bumped. So it's sort of the founding document of Saxton Stadium, and not dissimilar to, I'm sure, a similar one in the hockey softball pavilion or the athletics cricket agreement, where there's a baseline document that has some history and some purpose why it was set up. So I'd strongly urge you to review it with the codes, but have something in place, because it wouldn't have been there without those codes. It wouldn't have been built. And when I look around the table, most of the officers, Paul's probably the only one from the office that I remember way back then. So a lot of the history has gone from both the council and from the codes. So I think that's quite important to have that founding document. Otherwise, all of a sudden, we might be in a situation where you don't have a founding document, you have some issues, you've got nothing to go back and start a conversation with. So I think, as much as it probably was contentious for me when I was managing that place, it was a useful document to make decisions on. I guess that's some advice.
Yeah, agreed. And so not so much a question, but to provide an answer of sorts, you are 100% right in that there has been a lot of knowledge lost. The oral tradition seemed strong, and we had to do some real searching to find that MOU, and it actually wasn't even signed, and it covered from, I think, 2016 to 2025, so it wasn't even the original one. So this is what we're trying to correct, as we know it expires next year. We want to have a clear way forward for everybody, including the contractor, all the codes and council staff. So that's why at the next committee meeting, we want to bring a suggestion back, having worked with stakeholders, so that we're all crystal clear, and that the fees and charges on the website reflect any MOUs, or, so we will bring back some options for you guys. Yeah.
Brent. Useful having some people who had experience on that too. So thank you. Anything else? Well, that's a signage issue. Cricket are coming back to us at a meeting on for the indoor cricket facility. Campbell?
Do I read it correctly that they'll bring a proposal to the Saxton committee, and then it still has to go through council to be formally approved, or do we just approve potentially signage and naming of that building at this committee?
Thank you. Through the chair, in terms of what the reserve management plan says, it would require the Saxton committee to recommend to council, and it would be the Nelson City Council because it's on that Nelson City Council land, and so the council would need to make that decision.
Okay. Thanks.
You can't make too many decisions, as you can recall. We're making a recommendation. So, right, Tim.
Empathise somewhat, but is this when nothing's completely black and white? But is it not a black and white? We don't allow it. Sorry, unfortunately, you can't do it. Is that the case, or we're trying to make an exception to roll, or is there a bit of a grey area here in regards to who, how, and where with regards to signage? I thought it was black and white. But
through the chair, in terms of the signage, there's a section in the reserve management plan that says we would allow signage and naming rights of this, sponsorship like this, if it meets these certain criteria. So we need to receive the proposal and assess whether it meets those criteria.
thank you. Cheers.
Anything else on page 11? 12? Just including some upcoming events. You'll note there, White Ferns coming up very shortly, early next month. I just wanted to add one more to early April, 4th to 6th of April is the South Island Secondary Schools Track and Field Championships here, which we're on a cycle of about 4 or 5 venues in the South Island that host those. So it's top of the South turn coming up. So there's preparations being done for those. So we could have 7 or 800 students plus supporters taking part in that. We have to wait and see whether the economic times has influenced that, but there's usually that sort of number of participants. So it's quite a big meet, certainly by far the biggest meet that we will have this season at the track. Any other comments or queries on the last page?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one if I have, and it's fallen off the bottom of the page, I think. But what was happening with the radio tower land purchase? It's just disappeared off the horizon. It's not even an action point. Is that gone, stopped, in progress? Silence.
Provide a brief update for that, Andrew?
Yes, through the chair, I think I did talk about that at the last meeting. I said that one's on hold, so it's not been progressed at this point.
Oh, just through the chair, one more question then. So with that in account, so the long-term lease is another 10 odd years, isn't it, in terms of we have for the land that land relates to? There was a period of time, I can't remember what it was, but we don't have an issue with land tenure in terms of if that's on hold.
No, I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but I think it is around 10 years or so.
Your agenda included, Jake, and with presentation at the last meeting that's circulated for your information, attached. But we all got that with your agendas. It was four pages.
I don't see that, but I might be on this agenda. Sorry, I
It
haven't
was sent as a separate attachment, I think, wasn't it? I got
an email, was it? Sorry,
I thought it was added into the folders for councillors to access.
that may be just our system. I'm not looking in the right place, but
That's what it looks like. So
we've got a new system.
I printed it out on my printer as well.
Okay, oh, very good.
Yeah, so this.
Sorry?
So does it seem like the committee didn't get that? Is that the case? I'll pass it down. You can have a look. Or somebody can get that copy because I inadvertently printed 2 copies.
Well, everything's able. Have you even just photocopy a copy of that?
Oh.
It was sent out as a document that was called minutes attachments. Came as a document.
No, we haven't got that,
Okay.
but there are cleverer people that may have seen it.
And not over this side of the table.
Can you see guys get that? No? Or maybe
I'm
just
not blaming anyone, just
maybe
clarifying in case it's something else.
just follow that up. Just circulate that to you then.
She did very well. She may not have one with her.
And you've got it. Okay, cool. Closing. Cool. Any further items anyone wants to raise? Last chance for that. Otherwise, I'll call on Heather's going to do a closing. Oh, sorry. Tim.
Just general business, like create the cricket and there's lots of different sporting codes. Love to use our facilities and we make everything available. I've been approached by, and you may well have been approached by the Pacifica cricket community. I'm not sure they have a different name for that. The Pacifica, and I said, great, they've been playing out on the fields, say out here, back out of there, near the cricket. And it's great use, but I have been approached by the community asking about a process to inquire further about utilising the space more formally or so forth. So I know it's not agenda items. I'm not expecting an answer now, but
maybe you can just have a chat to staff after the meeting about that.
Yeah, because we don't get the same chances. We don't have committees, and so I don't always get the same chance to talk about it past me. So I'm afraid I'll miss the opportunity. So I just raise it here. I'm not expecting an answer now, and you may well be approached, but so I'm doing my due diligence. They're asking who to approach, and I've kind of said, hey, I'll get the contact of some good people for you.
So they've been through the chair, they've been in touch with me as well. So
thank you. Cool. Keep me in a loop if of help. I think both of my hat on for Nelson City Council, but Sports Tasman and like these good people here. Because I get a lot of good people contacting us, but being we don't have the same committee structure, it always seems a little bit of a disconnect in our roles. Has its pros and cons, but I'm aware you've probably been contacted. Thank you. And then I can get back to them and say, hey, no, it's all taken care of. Cheers, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Tim. Yep. Sure.
So when I was talking about the MOU before, I said next year it expires, but my brain's clearly still in 2024 because it is this year.
This year, yeah. Right. Yeah. All right, thanks, Hannah, for that. And you were offered the closing character here. Thank you.
Excuse me, Derek. I've just been looking on the Tasman DC website and found Jake's presentation amongst the minutes from the last meeting. FYI.
Okay.
On our website.
I move that we go back to the paper. No. Before you close the meeting, have I got a seconder? I lost that battle. I lost that battle last turn, or this term, I should say, but maybe I can win it back here. Yes. The website is good.
The joys of communications. Right. Okay. Thanks for that. Hannah, thank you.
Kia ora, kia hiki te kōrero, kia wātia, kia mama te manawa o te tangata. Kia ukitiara mō tātou e ora nei. Korongo ki runga, kia tina, hui e, tai ki e.
Thank you. I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much for your contributions and time. Questions? Sorry, I often forget to call for a Please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Now we can close.